Coming up today on the Indie Wave podcast, we head over to Jarrow, England for a chat with the Glacier FM Metal Song of the Year winner for their hit A Cry for Help, Crashed Out. We'll have the frontman for the UK punk band of the ages, Chris Wright of Crashed Out, to talk about the indie music biz, now that CDs are a thing of the past, and the coming wave that is the indie music industry. So stay tuned and hit that subscribe button. It's time for the Indie Wave podcast. The Indie Wave podcast with That Sailing Guy. That Sailing Guy, also known as Christopher German. In partnership with Glacier FM and broadcasting from the birthplace of grunge, Aberdeen, Washington. Welcome to the Indie Wave podcast. Welcome to the Indie Wave podcast, where each week we foray into the world of indie music and talk to some of the best new artists yet to be found by the larger world audience. But thanks to the good folks over at Glacier FM, who have curated a collection of these top artists and allowed me, That Sailing Guide, to get to know each and every one of these artists in a half-hour podcast I produce each week and air on Glacier FM and Glacier Underground on YouTube and everywhere you hear great podcasts. You get the exclusive access to behind-the-music interviews with some of the best artists you may have never even heard of. This week, we have a band that if you haven't heard of them, it is just because you weren't paying attention, because they have been rocking the punk scene straight from Jarrow, England for the last 3 decades and have toured over the years with the likes of Rancid, the Dead Kennedys, and the Misfits. This is a band that started the whole punk sound of the angsty 90s, and they've been rocking it ever since across Europe and the UK. The band is Crashed Out, winners of the Glacier FM Metal Award for 2022, and currently riding high at the number 8 spot on the Glacier FM Top 50 charts. And the man I got to speak to is a gentleman, a scholar, and one of the best kick-ass frontman on the rock scene today. And we got a chance to sit down and talk about the changes the indie music industry has undergone over the last 30 years. Well, I got a chance to relive a few moments from my angst of my angry days at school when the sound of punk echoed through the goose crap covered hills of Yukon stores, and I found solace in the growl of punk bands like Crashed Out. Here is a taste of the band that was described by Wipeout Music Publishing as a masterful quartet that has nailed their in-your-face yet melodic punk rock that will grab you by the throat, slap you on the cheek, and give you a cheeky grin. Here is the Glacier FM 2022 Best Metal Song of the Year, A Cry for Help by Crashed Out, followed by an exclusive interview I shot with Crashed Out frontman Chris Wright.
Sunday night, there's a man with a gun and he wants to die. Doesn't want to hurt anybody else. Wants to stop the pain and it's in his head. A cry for help, took a gun in his hand. Extreme actions of a desperate man. A black dog was with him wherever he go. He loves his wife, his job, they took his home.
Let me tell you who I got today, folks. We have, I dare say, a gentleman from my youth, a gentleman from hopefully your youth, a gentleman who has been around for a lot of years, who's been making some great music, and is just all of a sudden back on the top of the charts again at Glacier FM for the Best Metal Song of 2022. Chris, put your picture on this screen here. Let's talk to you right now. We have Crashed Out, folks. This is an exciting time for me. I am absolutely thrilled. Chris, welcome to the program. How are you doing today?
I'm fine. You all right?
I'm doing all right, yeah. Well, I mean, do it even better now that you're here, because you know, let me tell you this. Picture this: 1994, 1995, 1996. I was sitting in a very cold, a lonely dorm room in the middle of Yukon at Storrs, Connecticut, here in the United States, and I was listening to a band which you were playing with at the time, Rancid, and quite frankly. I've seen the list of people you've played with. I've heard your music. You are absolutely you have just awoken an animal inside of me from the days when I was a young buck and I was pissed off and fighting the world and angry, and you are embodying that with your music and with all the things that you're doing right now. And quite frankly, your win for Best Metal Song of the Year 2022, A Cry for Help. Everybody should be hearing this song, and everybody should be heading out to Jarrow and exploring the worlds of the UK, because, sir, you are music. You are what we want to hear.
That's it. Dead right. Get it out there. Get it out.
Well, tell me this.
How
How have you been doing? What's going on in your world? What's happening? What do you feel about this thing that's going on with Glacier FM, this streaming thing, this new world of indie music that's taking over? You've been signed, you've been not signed, you've gone through band members, you've been doing this for almost 30 years now. So tell me, what do you think of all this stuff?
Things are going okay at the minute. We're signed to another label that's in Germany. I try and talk a little bit slow because I've got a Geordie accent. Not many people do. We're on a label called Demons Run Amok Records. It's in Austria and Germany. They've been really good. They released the album Against All Odds. The album's a 16-track album. A lot of it was wrote during the lockdown because we had plenty of time to mess about with writing and things. So, and we're just, the label's been looking after it pretty good. We've had some excellent response from it, some great reviews from all over the world. The only downside is that I don't think you can physically get it in the US or US and Canada, unless you send for it from Demons Run Amok. There's no distributor over there. That's the only thing. But I mean, these days you've got Spotify and things like that, so that helps. But I would like to get like a physical. That's one thing I'd like to get, a physical copy over there available for everyone to be able to get. As for the band, we're doing really well. We've got lots of gigs lined up this year, some decent festivals. We're going to Germany this year. We've got Punk and Disorderly Festival. Then at the start of next year, we've got another tour of Germany planned for January. So we're really busy at the minute. The band's going pretty well. We're full steam ahead, sort of thing, so to speak. Everything's good. Everything seems good. We're actually starting to write some new material as well. So we've got all that going on.
Well, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, you know, but for us here over across the pond, you know, we've obviously, you know, we have to get you guys through Spotify. We have to get you through Pandora, YouTube, all that kinds of good stuff. And that's kind of where we're at with this show here is we're talking about the indie side of things. And you know, quite frankly, you know, you're not the only one. We were talking to a guy a couple weeks ago over in Wales they've got music over there, but they're having a tough time getting it over here. What do you think about the translation? It's all English, but for some reason we just can't seem to get your music over here.
Can I get what, sorry?
We just can't seem to get your music over here. We have to. What do you feel about, you know, getting your discs over here, getting your recordings over here? How has that been for you?
It's so expensive for like Demons Run Amok. He's been talking to a few different labels over there, trying to get them to carry it. But his idea was to send them his pressed releases, because obviously he wants to make money out of it and cover his costs. So he wants to send them his releases for them to make. But by the time you pay for the postage and the transportation, it just costs a fortune. And that reflects on the people who've got to buy it, which it's going to be like ridiculous amounts of money for like an album, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's hard now, especially with Spotify, all the kids, the young ones these days, that's all they want, you know? It seems to be the older generation are wanting some physical copies, like the albums. I think vinyl's come back in a big way because it feels like you've got something, you know, you're holding something. Whereas even a CD was good, it was practical, but it wasn't. It felt a bit cheap, didn't it, compared to a vinyl sort of thing. So vinyl's come back in a big way. It's just a shame we can't get it over there, you know. That's what we need. We need a label over there to distribute our stuff. Even press it over there, I would say, get someone to press it. It's just hard now. I think that the online music streaming's like killed a lot of that.
Yeah,
and it's pushed the prices through the roof.
Well, it's a different
sense because anybody can listen to our stuff. It's great for that.
Yeah, but it's a different world now than when you started out. You started out back in the 90s. I mean, I had with everybody else, I had about 1 million CDs, and then we would have the Napster issue where people were stealing music and all that kinds of good stuff. And this streaming thing is really changing the way that music happens and the way that people interact with it and the way that you connect with it. How are you pivoting with that happening in your world?
I mean, as I say, it's still good for the band if you can get your music online. You know, I mean, we've got our stuff online, it's still good, but we haven't got a massive amount of followers on Spotify because, being honest, I'm a bit of a dinosaur when it comes to the internet and how to do social networking and things like that. And the rest of the band also are left behind a little bit like that, you know. So you just got to get out there and play live. That's the main thing, is getting out there playing live. You know, but it's a catch-22 because if you haven't got a lot of listeners on Spotify, there's promoters won't put you on because it doesn't matter how great the band plays, they want people there in attendance, so they want to see that you're popular.
Yeah,
and it's quite, being honest, like when you're doing it yourself, DIY band, it's hard. It's hard for me anyway to get my head around a lot of this networking and things like that. You know,
well, quite frankly, I think the network should come to you, sir, because quite frankly, I mean, you have the pedigree, you have the ability to really reach across the generations now. Quite frankly, you're talking to a dinosaur like me too now at this point. So, but you know, I mean, the thing is that, you know, I think the themes that you talk about in your music, the angst of the working class, the ability to really just reach out and rip the soul out of a night drinking. You put all that together, and quite frankly, I think that crosses borders. And quite frankly, I think even if we have to do it via Spotify here in the United States, I'm glad we have you here just the same.
I mean, it's a hard one, you know. Like, if people want to, it's hard to get to like a new audience. Being honest, I find that people who know our stuff will follow, but it's trying to get across to like another generation or a younger generation. It's hard to get that across that border sort of thing.
Yeah,
you know, that's what I still find hard.
Well, riddle me this. You know, the downloading side of things and all that's really not your bag. I get that. That's something that's a little bit part of I think the new generation, and I'm trying to latch onto that myself as much as I possibly can. But you know, what's the same? What do you see happening in your shows? What do you see going on with your followers, with the people that love your music? What is the same that it's always been?
What do you mean by the crowd? The type of crowd that we get?
Yeah, are you noticing that there's different faces? Are you noticing there's a different energy? Yeah. Are you noticing what's going on?
I'm seeing more like a crossover, like more like rock type people coming, not just predominantly like punk rockers. There's more getting like a rock crowd, and quite frankly, like quite a lot of people who are just ordinary people that don't dress like rockers or that don't dress like punk rockers, you know. And I think people are starting to appreciate the music for what it is, rather than just, it's a punk rock band, we're going to see a punk rock band, punk rockers, that's what punk rockers do. And then some people might get the wrong impression, you know, they don't know the punk scene or anything, they put two and two together and they get five, and they make assumptions and they don't go. But us, I'm starting to see a bit of a crossover where there's people, so it's getting through to people who might not have listened to punk, you know, might be listening to like rock or heavy rock, you know, or even metal. Like you say, we went across. I mean, that they got voted best metal song.
Yeah,
you know. So it's getting across to like a different genre of people, which is good, you know. It's good. That's what I'm noticing, a bit more of that. And there's quite a few young'uns. There's a lot of anger in Britain and in Europe on a whole at the minute. And there's a lot like a younger generation that are kicking a stink up, you know, and that are like becoming like aware of things. And I'm starting to get them coming to the shows. Not just like kids who have, like the odd kid who have found we're through their dad's music or something like that. Like we're starting to get kids, like young kids who are like, they found we're through the scene sort of thing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They've been turned onto the scene through the anger and looking for like songs or bands that like reflect that. And I think we're getting quite a few young'uns like that coming to the shows as well.
Well, you know, and that's exactly what spoke to me when I was a young lad, so to speak. You know, I was all about the energy, the angst,
yeah.
the you know, I mean, I caught up with you guys on the edge of grunge. I mean, I was just post grunge period, and quite frankly, I think you hit me at a time in my life when I was really looking for somebody that could really, you know, put a point on what I was feeling. Yeah. And right now, I mean, we have the Katy Perrys of the world, and we have all that other stuff going on that's reaching to the young generation. But at the same time, I think you hit on a point that, you know, there is a lot of angst in this world, and there's a lot of between the unemployment, between the economic strife that's going on, between the politics of the world that's going on, between, you know, all that kinds of stuff. You're really, I think you're giving it a release valve, so to speak, with your music.
Yeah, well, it always has been like that, really, hasn't it? Punk. You know, I mean, you've got different types of punk rock. You've got kind of bands that are like really like angry and are really like politicalized. And then you've got bands who are like, they have a bit of a joke with our songs, you know, like say the Toy Dolls or some bands like Arab Dickies, you know, they're just like taking the piss and things like that. And it's good to let off steam both ways, really, you know.
Yeah.
We try to just cover everything. I mean, we'll have a joke with some stuff. Try and get my point across on some issues that we think's important. And as long as we play well, that's the main thing, you know. That's the main thing. I mean, I don't think much has changed regarding people finding bands, because I've done exactly the same when I was 11 years old.
Yeah,
I was in school. I was listening to like Joe Strummer, The Clash, and the Pistols. What about at the time? I was only like, wasn't it about 1980. And then as a kid at school, give us a Angelic Upstart single. And that was it. When I listened to that, I was like, they're actually talking about some issues that I can relate to, you know, where the Pistols didn't really, was good stuff, great music, loved it, and angry and everything. But the Upstarts were like talking about our area and about where we lived, and I could relate to the topics they were talking about. And I was like, fuck hell, that's exactly what we are, you know. They're talking about us, the people. And that was the band for me. So that's what I'd done when I was 11 years old. That's what happened to me when I was 11 years old. And I think the same things are happening now. Like you say, it happened to you as well. You know, you look for these things, sort of thing. If you're that way inclined, then you'll find them.
Yeah. Well, then I have to ask you this question, sir. And I don't want to upset you, but I have to ask you. You were named the best metal song of 2022 on Glacier FM. How do you feel about that? That doesn't seem to jive with a lot of the things that you're talking about right now. Is somebody calling you a metal band? I wouldn't call you that myself, but we have our categories we have to use.
I like it.
Well, you're getting all kinds of good play on Glacier FM, so they love you there, and the listeners love you on Glacier FM. So what do you think about all that?
I like it. I don't. It's, to me, it's good to be recognized. You know, it's good to be recognized. It's good that people. It doesn't matter what you want to call it, rock, punk, rock, metal, whatever. You know, if you like the music, you like the music. You know, if it's got to come under a label, so be it. I'm not bothered. As long as it's getting out there and people, I appreciate that people are listening, that they voted for it. It's an honor. You know, it's great. I wouldn't say we've never ever been classed as a metal band, really. But we do crossover into like rock. We've done like rock festivals and things like that. We supported Girls' School, Massive Wagons. We've supported the Levelers. So we'll have crossed over into the rock scene as well. We've done motorbike rallies, festivals. So we kind of go between the two. But we never really metal, I wouldn't say. But I don't mind. I just kind of grow my hair.
Well, there you go. There you go. But all right. So here's what we're gonna do now is I want to introduce a song that you guys did a long time ago, but it's something I think that is past through the ages, and quite frankly, I think it's as fresh today as it was when you originally recorded. Tell me a little bit about the story of Jarrow's song.
The Jarrow song, that's not our song. It was recorded by Alan Price in 1973. It's a song about the unemployment and the poverty on Tyneside in Jarrow, the town that I'm from. And it was in 1936. That was that desperate around here. There was no sanitation, there was no jobs. It was a real depressed area. So what they've done is the local people in the area, they've marched to London, basically to protest about the plight of the area up here. There was a massive north-south divide. So they got together and they marched to London. I think it was 246 men. They walked to London, which is like, I think it's 200 or 300 mile, something like that. Just to bring about the awareness of the poverty on Tyneside and Jarrow in general. And that's what that song was about, marching to London, the Jarrow song. Alan Price wrote it in 1973. And there wasn't a lot of protest songs about then. So to me, the lyrics of that song was real punk rock, even though it wasn't the way he'd done it. It wasn't like punked up the way we do. It wasn't fast. It's more like a folk song, you know.
Yeah.
But the lyrics were like, this is punk as anything, you know. And that's what we said. I said, let's do that because it's still up to date. After Thatcher, what she done to the area, exactly the same. I said, so it's still apt. I mean, we brought that out in 1995, was it 95?
I think so, yeah.
Oh, no, sorry, no, it was 98, I think it was.
Okay.
So we brought that out then, and it was just as apt then as it was in 1973, you know. So that's what the song's about, but it's a cover of an Alan Price classic.
Well, it's a cover, I think, that you have certainly put your brand on, and quite frankly, I like what you guys did with it, and I love it, and I want to share it with the world. So you mind if we go to that right now, and I play Jarrow's song by Crashed Out?
Let's do it.
This is what we're going to play right now, folks. Jarrow's song, Crashed Out. You know, crack a beer, sit back, have a listen, and if you have to, throw a little anger around. But this is the song that I want to play, and it's my show, so I get to play it. Jarrow's song by Crashed Out. Here we go.
Yeah.
Won't even give you a second.
First off, I want to say thank you to Chris for joining me for a chat about the world that the indie music has become. You know, speaking with veterans like Chris Wright really gives you a sense of gratitude about what we have going right now on the indie scene. When Chris started out, there was no YouTube. There was no internet. There was no Spotify. You had to find a way to record your clips, transfer it over to a tape, or if you were really advanced, burn it to a CD, and then mail a hard copy of that recording to a record label who may or may not listen to it before throwing it into a pile of 1,000 other recordings they weren't intending to listen to. We didn't have any email to send MP3s or social media to share clips and get news about the shows and concerts. It was all word of mouth. And if your friends didn't tell you about it, you didn't hear about it. It wasn't like you could Google a specific genre of music and connect with a band from halfway around the world. If you were really cool, you got to hang out in the East Village of New York City and hear indie artists rage the night away in a club with only a hope that you might remember what you heard the next day through the drunken-addled drunken haze. And then there was college radio. We didn't have internet radio stations like Glacier FM to specialize in all the underground sounds that commercial media deemed unfit for mass consumption. You had to drive in the wee hours across thousands of college campuses across the United States and tune in for that one DJ who partied with rock stars on Thursday night and played their music on his show on Saturday night, in a show that was so alternative that the college advisory boards refused to allow it on the air before 11 p.m. Finding indie bands was really hard back when Chris Wright started out. Now, all you have to do to find some of the best indie artists out there is to listen to this show or tune in to Glacier FM for all the best indie music. And you can even do it from your cell phone on a hillside in the middle of a national park. The truth is, indie music is so much more democratic than it used to be. And that's what makes bands like Crashed Out so amazing, because they have done it all and seen it all, and they're still doing it. And we are going to keep doing it each and every week on the Indie Wave podcast. We will continue to bring you the best indie artists as heard on Glacier FM radio and share the stories of the men and women who are working to ride the indie wave to share their love of music and expression. Tune in each and every week on Glacier FM, YouTube, and everywhere you find great podcasts. Big thanks to the guys that Crashed Out and to all the good folks over at Glacier FM, and a big thank you to you for turning in and sharing this podcast with all your friends who love great music. I'm your host, That Sailing Guy, and I'll see you next week. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.